Welcome to Everything Financial Radio. I'm your host, Dennis Tubergen, and you are listening to the Legacy Radio Network. Glad you're with me today, boy. Hope you're enjoying the summer weather we're having here, too. And we have a lot lined up to talk about on today's show. First of all, are we picking a fight with China? Will there be trade wars, and what will it mean for you and your money? A 100-year bond. Would anybody in their right mind loan any government anywhere in the world money for 100 years? Well, there's a country that's going to try to sell that. Too bad Billy Mays isn't around. They might need a really good pitchman to do that. We'll talk about that on today's show. Also, cities slashing pensions. Yeah, that really happened. We have people that have been receiving pensions for years that now got a cut in their pension plan. Can that happen? And could it affect anybody in West Michigan receiving pensions? We'll talk about that. Also, Bill Gross, who is the world's largest bond fund manager, said the Fed is playing a game with us. We'll be talking about that on today's show as well. Also, special guest, Gerald Celente. If you're not familiar with Mr. Celente's work, Gerald is the founder of the Trends Research Institute. He has been writing about trends for 32 years. I've been a subscriber to his Trends Journal newsletter for many years. Gerald is a very animated and colorful guy and also a very bright guy. We're really glad to have him on the show. He'll be joining us momentarily. Also, quick reminder, if you've not yet gotten a copy of our home study kit, the 2012 Market and Economic Outlook Home Study Kit, it is available yet through the month of March. So if you'd like to receive it, go to investingapproach.com. Give us your name and address. Let us know where to send it. We'll be glad to send you a complimentary copy. It's really very valuable information given today's current economic environment. So once again, go to investingapproach.com and let us know where to send it. We'll be glad to send you a complimentary copy of that home study kit. Also, we have discovery groups coming up in April. April the 10th will be over in Spring Lake at the beautiful Spring Lake Country Club. We will also on April 12 be at Watermark Country Club in Grand Rapids. We're doing these meetings at country clubs. It's just about that time of year again. In fact, some of you probably have had the sticks out this past week, enjoying the nice weather we've been having here. If you'd like information on our discovery groups, go to personallegacyseminars.com, personallegacyseminars.com. At these discovery groups, we'll not only talk about some recent law changes that could present some opportunities for you and your own personal financial situation. We'll also be talking about the current economic winter season in which we find ourselves, and we'll talk about whether or not this situation was entirely predictable, what lies ahead, and what it might mean for you and your money. We'll also be talking to Mr. Celente about that here momentarily. Meanwhile, in CNBC this past week, the head of the world's largest bond fund, the manager, I should say, of the world's largest bond fund, Mr. Bill Gross, stated that the Fed is playing a game with us. And in the article, he talked about the fact that there will be quantitative easing 3. The Fed will print more money, in Mr. Gross's opinion. He states in the article, which was published on March the 13th on CNBC, the title of the article was Fed Playing a Game with Us, PIMCO's Gross. He says whenever the Fed and other central banks have paused with their quantitative easing program since 2009, stock prices have fallen and economies have slowed. He said, to my mind, there's little hope for the private market substituting for central banks anytime soon. So Mr. Gross believes that we will see money printing, and if we see money printing, he believes that we will likely see the stock markets potentially continue to go up. I have on the phone with me Mr. Gerald Celente. I've been a big fan of Gerald's work for a long time. He is the founder of the Trends Research Institute. He founded that back in 1980. He can correct me in a moment if I'm wrong. He is a pioneer in the field of tracking trends. He is the author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trend Tracking, and he is the publisher of the internationally circulated Trends Journal newsletter. And I have personally read Gerald's newsletter for over 4 years. It comes out every quarter, and I drop what I'm doing and pick it up and read it. So Gerald, very much a pleasure to chat with you and have you on the show. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Hey, Gerald, I would like to start by talking a bit. You've made so many trend observations that were really predictions that were way ahead of the curve, far ahead of their actual occurrence. And in 2007, I saw you on television, and you've been on many television networks as well as newspapers, too numerous to mention. You predicted in 2007 the 2008 market meltdown, and you did it more than once. And I'm curious as to know your thinking at the time and how you managed to get that so right.
It was quite simple. We saw it happen after 9/11, and people, what you do as a trend forecaster is the understanding, the knowledge of where we are, how we got here, and where we're going. You can't look at the future without knowing the past and the present. And people forget that just before 9/11, we had a terrible NASDAQ market crash. Several $1 trillion of wealth was wiped out. We were in a severe recession. And then 9/11 happened, and Bush hit the airwaves, and Greenspan hit the bank. And what they did was they lowered interest rates steadily to 46-year lows. So they just kept flooding the system with cheap money and creating an inflationary cycle that they, of course, don't call inflation. But remember that house that you used to own that was, you didn't buy it for an investment. You bought it for someplace to live. Well, guess what? That house is a piggy bank. Why don't you borrow on it? Why don't you take a home equity loan? Well, in the old days, they used to call them second mortgages, and if people had one, they were losers. Go on a vacation, build an addition, and you can buy another house. So the whole cycle began, the private equity cycle, the hedge fund cycle, the average Joe trying to flip buildings in Phoenix and Florida. And so we saw the bubble building, and we knew it was unsustainable. So in 2007, we even took out the domain name, the Panic of '08, and we saw the big unwinding coming. Actually, in 2004 in the Trends Journal, we predicted that the Great Recession would happen before the end of 2007, and it did. So, it was an identifiable trend, but you see, when you go back and you think of what people's emotions were during the times following 9/11, and how the country was so intent upon moving forward that they negated the facts of what was going on that was getting us into this terrible bubble.
If you're just joining us, this is the Everything Financial Radio Show on the Legacy Radio Network. We're chatting with Mr. Gerald Celente. He is the founder of the Trends Research Institute and publisher of Trends Journal newsletter. Gerald, what are your predictions for the financial markets moving ahead, both the stock and bond markets?
Well, we're not really stock and bond pickers, but we're looking at the market, and it's a very clear one. As long as they keep interest rates low, and now they're talking basically, they say the end of 2014. Well, how about 2015? So again, it's the same situation. They're flooding the market with cheap money. As long as there is cheap money, the market should continue to go up until reality strikes. What will make reality strike? What made it strike the last time? It wasn't until how long was Lehman lying that the fundamentals of their balance sheet was fine? How many lies did they all tell to say everything was under control? And by the way, I'm not making this up. As we now know that the Federal Reserve pumped, trillions of dollars into the banking system, virtually overnight to keep it afloat, as they were lying about how sound their balance sheets were. So we're going to have to see evidence of the fraud before it hits reality.
And Gerald, you said when reality hits, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what is the end game here? When does reality hit, and how does this play out? And we've got a couple minutes left in this segment. We can pick it up on the other side if you need more time.
No, reality plays out when we're going to see a continuing unraveling of Europe and no way of bailing it out. A reality happens when if they start a wonderful little war like against Iran and you see oil prices skyrocket and equity markets dive, that's reality. So it's going to be something of a major event, we believe, not a slow meltdown.
So in the most recent Trends Journal, you wrote about the possibility, in your view, of a bank holiday. And I'd like to ask you to answer that question maybe on the other side of this break, so I'll let you think about it for a minute. But if somebody wants to learn more about your work or get some information about the Trends Journal newsletter, what would they do?
Oh, trendsjournal.com, trendsjournal.com. And by the way, we know that a lot of people are having a difficult time. So there's a discount request form over there. Just fill it out. It's very easy to fill out. No personal information or anything like that. So because the purpose of the Trends Journal is to prepare you for the future. There's no reason to go into the future with blinders on. So, and by the way, this whole prepper movement, I'd like to talk about that when we get back as well, because that's a trend.
Well, that's great, and we will chat more with Mr. Gerald Celente of Trends Journal Newsletter when Everything Financial Radio returns. Quick reminder, if you would like to get our home study kit for our economic and market update home study kit, just go to investingapproach.com. Be glad to send it to you. We will be back with Mr. Gerald Celente after these words. Stay with us.
Give me your money. Just give me money.
That's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free.
Welcome back to the Legacy Radio Network. I'm your host, Dennis Tubergen. You are listening to the Everything Financial Radio Show. We will join again Mr. Gerald Celente in the next segment and continue our conversation with him. We'll get his take on U.S. manufacturing and the future of the U.S. economy. We'll also get his take on some trends that are developing around the world, including something very interesting called direct democracy. A very interesting idea. You'll want to stay tuned for that. You know, Mr. Celente in the last segment talked about the fact that the Fed will likely keep interest rates near zero through 2015 in his view. That's another 3 years. And he stated that one of the reasons that, in his view, they're going to do that is to try to mask the underlying economic condition, the economic climate, if you will. And we have, for many, many months now, been talking about the fact that we think we are in what we call an economic winter. We believe that economies move in cycles, and Mr. Ian Gordon, who's been a past guest on the Everything Financial Radio Show, helps us identify these cycles by naming them after the seasons. So that means we have the spring cycle, we have the summer cycle, the autumn cycle, and the winter cycle. Well, the season immediately preceding the current winter cycle, in which we believe we are living currently, is the autumn cycle. And during this autumn season, there are some characteristics that exist. Now, we think the autumn cycle lasted from 1983 through 2000. And see if some of these characteristics from that time frame sound familiar. Money is plentiful during the autumn season. Gold prices fall during the autumn season, reaching a gold bear market low by the end of the autumn season. You know, way back in 1980, it was interesting. Gold was about $800 an ounce, and at that point, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was about 800. In other words, they were on par. However, by the end of the autumn cycle, gold prices had fallen from $800 an ounce to less than $300 an ounce. During the autumn cycle, while gold prices fall, there's a massive stock bull market. Well, if the Dow was at 800 in 1980, we know where the Dow is today, north of 13,000. We have seen a significant bull market in the context of the last 30 years or so. During autumn, financial fraud is prevalent. Real estate prices rise significantly due to speculation, and debt levels are astronomical. During winter, to be very succinct,